Welcome to Spectrum News at 4, coming to you live from Uyo. My name is Ofonono Joseph. Let's take a look at the top stories. Nigeria's First Lady, Remi Tinubu, unveils 10 digital learning centers for youths. Federal government insists Nigeria not a violator of religious freedom. Plus, South Korea announces lowering of some tariffs as part of new U.S. trade deal. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more in a moment. Good afternoon. Good to have you join us on the news at 4. We begin the news at noon from the national scene where President Bola Tinubu has tasked states to domesticate the National Urban Development Policy to bolster town planning. Tinubu, who was represented by the Minister of Housing and Urban Development Ahmed Dangiwa, made the call at the 2025 Nigerian Institute of Town Planners NITP 56th International Conference and Annual General Meetings in Abuja. The theme of the conference was refocusing planning administration towards sustainable urban governance and development. He said that the federal government placed urban development at the heart of the national transformation agenda. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has pledged to support Dangote Refinery's plan to expand production capacity to 1.4 million barrels per day from 650,000 barrels per day. Tinubu gave the assurance at the 19th edition of the OTL Africa Downstream Conference and Exhibition in Lagos. The president, who was represented by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil, Heineken Lokbobiri, described the project as a game changer for Nigeria, West Africa, and the global energy market. He added that the refinery's expansion would not only boost Nigeria's self-sufficiency in refined products, but also strengthen energy supply across the continent. Recall that Aliko Dangote, president of Dangote Refinery, recently announced a plan to expand the refinery to 1.4 mbpd. Away from that, Nigeria has again dismissed claims by some foreign officials suggesting that terrorists target only Christians. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, who was interviewed on an international media organization, clarified that the right to freedom of religion is enshrined in the nation's constitution, also adding that such assertions are misleading and not reflective of the country's complex security realities. The minister further said that there is a renewed focus by the Tinubu administration towards addressing Nigeria's security challenges to guarantee the safety and well-being of all citizens. In a separate development, the First Lady of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, has reaffirmed her commitment to youth empowerment through education with the commissioning of 10 new digital learning centers across the country. In a statement posted on X by the Presidency of Nigeria, the First Lady said the initiative implemented under the Renewed Hope Initiative aims to equip young Nigerians with the tools and knowledge needed to thrive in a digital world. The centers, inaugurated virtually from the State House in Abuja, are located in Abia, Delta, Edo, Kano, Katsina, Lagos, Nasarawa, Ondo, Yobe, and Zamfara states. The project, carried out in partnership with the National Information Technology Development Agency, is part of efforts to promote technological literacy and bridge the gap between education and employability. Elsewhere, the proposal by the National Assembly to conduct the next presidential and governorship elections, as well as that of state and National Assembly elections in November next year, has triggered reactions from the coalition powered by African Democratic Congress, ADC. The federal lawmakers are proposing that the next general election should be conducted 6 months before the end of the current administration's tenure instead of February or March, as has been the tradition in the past. The proposal, contained in a draft amendment to the 2022 Electoral Act, seeks to ensure that elections into the offices of president and governors are held not later than 185 days before the expiration of the tenure of the incumbents. It is specifically proposing November 20, 2026 for the election into the offices of the president and governors. And now to the Green Chambers, where the House of Representatives has resolved to investigate the standard and quality of completed and ongoing projects executed by the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, in all tertiary institutions across Nigeria to ensure value for money. In its resolution following a motion sponsored by Aderemi Osheni, APC, Oyo, the House asked the Federal Ministries of Education and Finance, the National Universities Commission, TETFund, and development partners to work out modalities to refurbish the first-generation universities to restore the glory and quality of the universities. Leading the debate on the motion, Osheni recalled that first-generation federal universities in Nigeria in the early 60s exuded glory, quality from inception, and were also the pride of the nation. On security matters, the Chief of Army Staff, COAS, Major General Waidi Shoibu, has vowed to deal with the terrorist group Lakurawa wreaking havoc in parts of the northern region. Shoibu, who was recently appointed by President Bola Tinubu, stated this at his screening by the Senate today. He recounted his military career and field experience, highlighting his role as a commanding officer in Borno State, where he played a key part in counter-insurgency operations. He further stated that in the long term, the Nigerian Army would enhance career development and prioritize troops' welfare. In politics, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has approved the deployment of 45,000 officers for the Anambra governorship election, billed for Saturday, November 8, 2025. Egbetokun said this on Tuesday at the meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, ICCES, held at INEC headquarters, Abuja. The IGP, represented at the event by the Commissioner of Police for Special Interventions Squad, Abayomi Shogunle, said the deployment would ensure adequate security before, during, and after the polls. He announced that pre-election deployments would begin on November 1, with tactical units conducting clearance operations to neutralize threats and arrest potential troublemakers. Egbetokun also disclosed that only security agencies officially represented in the ICCES, such as the Police Department of State Services, DSS, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, and the military, would be involved in the election. Moving now to Africa, where Madagascar's military ruler named today a government replete with familiar faces from the island's political elite, sidelining young protesters' call for a clean slate after President André Rajoelina's ouster. Angry over chronic power cuts and economic stagnation, the poverty-stricken Indian Ocean Islands Gen Z protesters sparked a mass movement for change, which led to Rajolina's flight after Colonel Michael Randranirina mutinied and seized power. But Randranirina, who was sworn in as president on October 17, announced today that he had selected a 28-person cabinet, which includes several ex-ministers and Rajolina's former right-hand man, after consulting Madagascar's main power brokers. Several key figures from the Rajolina era made a comeback in the new cabinet, raising fears over whether the new government will heed the Gen Z movement's demands. Still in Africa, Sudan's military chief, General Abdel Fattah Burhan, says commander in the war-torn city of El Fasher made the decision to withdraw in order to spare civilians from what he described as systematic destruction and killing at the hands of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF. The remarks came as activists and humanitarian groups reported that RSF fighters seized a major army base, the final government stronghold in the western Darfur region, marking a significant turning point in a conflict that has devastated Sudan since April 2023. Burhan vowed retaliation, accusing the paramilitary of committing crimes not only in El Fasher but across the country. Moving now to the foreign scene. The U.S. and South Korea have reached a broad trade deal both countries have said following talks between their leaders. South Korea's presidential aide, Kim Yong-bom, said the two sides will keep reciprocal tariffs at 15%, as was agreed earlier this year, but that the taxes on car and car parts would be lowered. South Korea will also invest $350 billion in the U.S., including $200 billion in cash investment and $150 billion in shipbuilding. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump, who is currently on a week-long trip in Asia, said the deal was pretty much finalized at a dinner following the discussions, which lasted almost 2 hours. He did not give further details. Still on the foreign scene, China has said that leader Xi Jinping and U.S. President Donald Trump will have in-depth talks on major issues on Thursday, as expectations grew for their high-stakes talks in South Korea. Trump has said he expected their first face-to-face meeting of his second term to result in the United States lowering tariffs imposed on China in relation to fentanyl. Beijing confirmed the face-to-face meeting on the sidelines of a summit of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, which is taking place in the city of Gyeongju. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said the talks would take place in Busan, a short flight from Gyeongju. Still to come in the news. Real Madrid winger Vinicius Jr. apologizes to Real Madrid fans. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more after this time out. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now we conclude the rest of our news stories. On our business news, the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, Taiwo Oyedele, has projected the states could earn more than our trillion naira annually from 2026 when new value-added tax reforms take effect. Oyedele made this disclosure at the launch of the Budget State of States 2025 report in Abuja, where he delivered the keynote address. The event also marked the 10th anniversary of the initiative. The fiscal policy expert noted that while recent economic reforms had more than doubled the Federation Account Allocation Committee transfers from 5.4 trillion naira in 2023 to 11.4 trillion naira in 2024, many Nigerians were yet to feel any direct relief. According to him, governments now have more money in their coffers, but households continue to struggle with reduced disposable income. Still in business, the naira continued appreciation against the United States dollar at the official foreign exchange market on Tuesday as Bureau de Change operators decried access to foreign exchange. The Central Bank of Nigeria's data showed that the naira strengthened to 1,448.20, up from 1,452.79 naira traded on Monday. This means that the naira gained 4.59 naira against the dollar on a day-to-day basis. Meanwhile, at the black market, the naira remained stable at 1,485 naira per dollar yesterday, the same exchange rate as on Monday. The development comes as the Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria lamented their members' access to dollars despite the continued rise in the country's external reserves, which stood at $42.86 billion as of October 22, 2025, according to CBN's data. On health news, the Federal Ministry of Health has announced that it has another related offences commission to monitor and track the utilization of the Basic Health Care Provision Fund across the country. This was disclosed by a team led by a member of the Ministerial Oversight Committee and Basic Healthcare Provision Fund Secretariat, Dakum Benji, during a one-day onboarding workshop for state oversight committees of the BHCPF for the Northeast region held in Bauchi. Speaking to journalists on the sidelines of the event, Benji said the move aimed to ensure accountability. According to him, communities must remain vigilant and report any misuse or diversion of funds to the appropriate authorities through the text, phone, and email channels provided for feedback. Still talking health, as Nigeria joins the rest of the world to mark World Stroke Day 2025, Stroke Action Nigeria has urged citizens to take greater responsibility for their health and support national efforts to prevent as well as reduce the rising incidence of stroke across the country. In partnership with the World Stroke Organization WSO, Federal Medical Center FMC, Onisha, the organization is leading a nationwide awareness campaign themed Power to Stop Strokes in Nigeria. The chief executive of Stroke Action Nigeria and board member of the World Stroke Organization, Dr. Rita Melfon, emphasized the importance of citizen-driven action, adding that every Nigerian has the power to stop strokes by equipping themselves with the knowledge to prevent and act fast when stroke strikes. She further added that to commemorate this year's World Stroke Day, Stroke Action Nigeria is working closely with the Federal Ministry of Health and several partners to implement community-based activities across different states. These activities include free stroke risk assessments and monitoring for blood pressure, diabetes, conferences, amongst others. Now to sports news, where Nigeria have qualified for the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON following a 3-1 aggregate win over neighbors Benin Republic. The Super Falcons drew 1-1 with the Amazons of the Benin Republic in the second leg of the qualifier played on Tuesday in Abeokuta, Ogun State. But a 0-2 victory in the reverse fixture in Lome, Togo, courtesy of goals from Esther Okoronkwo and Chiwendu Ihezuo, was enough to secure Nigeria's ticket for the tournament with a 3-1 aggregate win. Defender Ashley Plumter headed in from a brilliant Okoronkwo corner to give Nigeria the lead at the MKO Abiola Stadium in Ogun. It was the Al Ittihad Stars' first goal for the Super Falcons since switching alliance from England to Nigeria in 2017. Still talking sports, Real Madrid winger Vinicius Jr. has apologized to supporters for his reaction to being substituted in Sunday's fiery El Clasico win against Barcelona. Vinicius was taken off in the 72nd minute and expressed his frustration by going straight down the tunnel. The Brazilian later returned to the bench and after his side's 2-1 win tried to confront Barcelona's Lamine Yamal during unsavory post-match scenes. Vinicius joined Real from Flamengo in 2018 for £38.7 million and has scored 111 goals in 335 appearances. We move now to our entertainment scene where rapper Olamide has expressed comfort with being an indigenous organization. He emphasized the importance of staying true to oneself and identifying one's audience. According to him, staying authentic is key to success and that his music will eventually reach a broader audience if he remains true.